Let's dive into the 4 things that you need to know about the City of Fond du Lac housing market. What's the competition you're facing? How quickly are houses selling? How many houses are even out there for sale? And what does affordability look like? Looking at single family home data for the City of Fond du Lac throughout this video, let's talk about competition. How competitive was it out there? How much did houses sell over for? Well, last month we saw 10 to 15 over as the dominant amount that houses sold over for. This month, it's a whole array from 2K over to 20K over. It really runs the whole gamut, and it's anywhere from 3K to 8K to 15K. Anywhere within that range from 2 to 20 was pretty normal. There was a couple crazy outliers like 38K over and 45K over, but for the most part, we really saw between 2 and 20K over. So with these houses selling over asking price, how many of them sold over? In the month of May, about half of them sold over. And if we're looking at how many sold at or above, that's about 75% of properties. So that is a strong indicator of a seller's market when 75% of homes are selling at or above asking price. Now, if we go back to May a year ago, that was 79%. So pretty similar, just a little bit stronger. But going back to May of 2022, that was 94% of homes selling at or above list price. So we're not as crazy as we were a couple of years ago in the amount selling at or above for the month of May. Finally, what is the most active price point? Where are we seeing more go over? Well, the 200s were the hottest, where 100% of them sold at or above list price. Then the 100s were next, with about 73% of them selling at or above. And last of all was the 300s, where it was closer to 50% selling at or above. So depending what price point you're selling in or looking in, that's something that's important to take note of. How fast is the market moving? How quickly are houses accepting offers? Well, in the City of Fond du Lac in May, for those that sold, the 100s and 200s, that range, accepting an offer in about 1 week was pretty normal. When you got to the 300s, it was anywhere from 1 week to 1 month. It ranged in there that it took that amount of time to accept an offer. When we hit the 400s plus, well, there isn't too many of those. Some took around 1 week, some took 5 months. So not as easy to look at the distribution, but 100s and 200s around 1 week, 300s maybe taking up to 1 month. Then of these houses that sold in the month of May, how many of them took price reductions? Well, it was only 18% of them, which is the lowest that we have seen all year. This is pretty in line with April and June of last year as well. Our median days on market is pretty similar to last month at 41 days. That is getting an offer accepted and closing on your house in a little over a month's time. So what's the inventory situation? How many houses out there are for sale? Well, in the month of May, 44 homes sold. That is better than last year by far. Last year was only 29 that sold in the month of May. And the year before that was about 50. So we're kind of between 2022 and 2023 for the amount of homes that sold. But 44 homes selling this month is also the strongest month of home sales for the year of 2024. Total homes on the market is very similar to last month. There's 87 total on the market right now. That is much better than last year's 50. So again, it's exciting to see more of that inventory, and this is in line with summer of 2022. If we take those 87 houses and we look at what is available and what is under contract, we've got 36% available and 64% under contract. So that is again showing a seller's market because we are seeing that more are under contract. If we would get to around that 50% on each side, then we'd see a more balanced market. But right now we're seeing that 64% are under contract, and 36% are available. But there is something to note here that I'm watching a little bit. So of the 36% that are available, 2/3 of those have been sitting on the market for 2 or more weeks. So we are seeing this chunk of houses sitting, and we'll see that play out more in the data to come. And this is across all price ranges, but more so in the 300s and the 400s for this 2/3 that are sitting a little bit. Now let's talk affordability. What is a middle of the road home in the city of Fond du Lac? For the month of May, the median home price was $185K. Now that is a lot lower than we've seen it. It's been holding steady in the 200s, but I don't necessarily think this is because downward pressure on prices. What I think it is that we've seen a lot more inventory under that 200 mark. And so there's just more of a supply. And so it's where over half of the houses that sold in May were under that 200 mark. And for that reason, we're seeing that middle number be 185. So the trend here is not necessarily a downward pressure on prices, but the trend is that we are seeing more properties for sale that are under that 200K mark and really in that affordable price point. I pulled 2 different houses that sold for 185K in the city of Fond du Lac in May. Now, when you look at pictures of these 2 kitchens right here, you might be a little bit confused and think, these are very different kitchens. How did these sell for the exact same price of 185K? Well, let's talk a little bit about it. So what I want you to understand here is that age of home is quite different here, as well as location, and that can play a huge role in your pricing. So obviously, condition of one looks better than the other, but let's break it down a little bit more. So one of them that sold for 185K, the one with the non-updated kitchen that you're seeing, that was 612 Western Avenue, if you want to go look that up. It was built in 1951. It had about 1,100 square feet above grade and close to 250 below. It's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath with a 2-car garage, and then the yard is about 0.17 of an acre, and the whole house is completely outdated, again over on Western Avenue. Now the other property that sold for 185, the exact same price, where you see the updated kitchen, let's talk more about that. So this is 233 South Park Avenue. So you're talking a bit busier of a street. And again, location is really coming into play here. And it's built in 1900. So it is an older home that's been updated, but still almost 50 years older. It has about 1,700 square feet above grade, so it's actually quite a bit bigger than the other property. It's a 3-bed, 1.5 bath with a 1-car garage, so we can see we have a garage difference there. And then the yard is only 1/10 of an acre, so one of the smaller city lots out there, and it's remodeled and it's modern. So I want you to see how location can really play a difference. So one is very updated, one is not. And the one that's very updated is actually quite a bit bigger, and they still sold for the exact same price. Looking at affordability this month, I'm going to use the median home price of $185,000, and I'm going to use the example of 5% down, which would be a little over $9,000 down. Then when we look at interest rate, I did 7%. Interest rates have been around there. The Fed is actually in a meeting today, and we will see how that impacts rates. It's not a direct decision on it, but it does impact it, so it's something to pay attention to. But with the interest rates there, your payment is about $1,170 a month, and it's important to note that that does not include taxes, insurance, or PMI. Also, if you would put down more, then your payment would be less. I also want to run through the low end and the high end of what sold in May so you can get a better idea there what you're getting for your money. Now, there were some outliers and I did pull those out because there's just less people there. So there was a property that sold in auction for $59,000 and there's no pictures of the interior. I nixed that. I went up to the next highest one. And then for the high end, there was one property that sold at 1.2 million. And we all know that in the city of Fond du Lac, we don't have tons of people buying $1.2 million properties. So I chose the next lowest and highest to talk through with you. So the lowest one then next was 125K, and that was at 251 Bischoff. Now, this was built in 1940 and it's only 706 square feet. When you're looking at the pictures up here, you can probably figure out which kitchen it is. And those are older cabinets that are just painted. It's a 2-bed, 1-bath with a 1-car garage. The yard is a decent size though, at 0.17 of an acre. It has a new roof, but overall the property is completely outdated. So that was the low end at the 125. Then we jump up to the high end. The high end was 472 Ledgewood Drive. This is located on Whispering Springs Golf Course, and it sold for $585K. This one was built in 1996, and it has a lot of square footage. It's close to 3,400 square feet above grade, and another 1,000 that is finished in the lower level. It is a 4-bed, 2.5 bath with a 3-car garage, and it's on about 7/10 of an acre. So a pretty big yard there. 0.7 compared to, again, that lowest end property was 0.17. So you can see that's a big difference there. They have a lot of the wood look in the house being built in the mid-90s, but they also have done updates for the kitchen and the bath. And you can see that when you take a look at the picture here of the kitchen, that some of those bigger updates where you get more return on your money. Kitchen and baths are really one of those big selling points in big remodels. So they did do that here. Now, let's circle back to those 4 questions I asked in the beginning, and I'll give you the quick wrap up and quick summary. So, how competitive is the market? Well, for the city of Fond du Lac, under that 300K mark, you can expect competition. And it's expected to see 20K up to 20K over asking price when writing on a property and when properties are selling, anywhere in that whole range. How fast are houses selling? Well, about 75% of them in the month of May accepted an offer in 2 weeks or less. So within 2 weeks, a good chunk of them are going. What's the inventory situation? Well, it's holding in the 80s, and this is a good number compared to what we have seen in the past. And finally, affordability. I showed you median home price. I showed you low end, high end. So as a buyer, you can see what's in the price point you're considering, or as a seller, where your home maybe compares. And for affordability, I'm here to also tell you today that we are seeing more inventory under the 200 mark. So more affordable houses for first-time home buyers are hitting the market.